Hello everyone, my name is Patrick, and today I'm looking at Dragalia Lost, a brand new IP and mobile game released by Nintendo and Cygames. This game's an action RPG that pits your character, a prince, searching to make a pact with a dragon against many monsters and evil creatures of that realm. It's a free-to-play mobile game, which means that the main source of income from the game is in the microtransactions. In this case, the mobile game has a gacha system, which uses two separate currencies in order to buy the big draws to the game, the characters and their skills. I've sunk quite a bit of time into the game, but ultimately these are still my first impressions of the game, how it strikes me, how it misses, and how I feel about the game going forward. Dragalia Lost is an action RPG, which means that the combat that's within the game is pretty varied, with different characters having unique styles of combat based on their weapons, and combo chains that allow them to stand out. These combo chains serve primarily as a fun, visceral way to pummel enemies. Alongside the combos are special moves that each of the characters has. They all have unique names, and when used are the flashier, more powerful attacks that increase combo counts or hit exceptionally hard on enemies and bosses. Hidden behind a few tutorials as well are charge moves that are able to break through enemy barriers and deal a bit more damage than standard attacks. The player has control of a single character in a team of 4, allowing for each unique playstyle to be accessed within the quest. The other 3 are controlled by AI, which is competent enough for the purposes of progressing through the game. The game is narrative focused, with a mixture of cutscenes with voice acting and 3D models, as well as cutaways with narrative and dialogue that uses the 2D artwork instead. The narrative focus amongst the characters is a big draw to the game, and an asset that lets it stand out amongst the other free-to-play mobile games. The game is conscious of this and has a dialogue gallery system that allows for each unique character to be talked to in order to get to know them a little better. This goes further, as even dragons can be interacted with in order to learn more of their tales. The dialogue and voice acting within the game definitely separates it from the rest of the game. The game is played in small instance-based missions with specific map setups for each one. The instances can be tackled with a team that's set up on the map screen in order to ensure that the player has a team that's viable to complete the stage with. Whenever starting a level, the player has an option to choose an outside helper, a friend or a random stranger, so that the player can use their special ability to be able to deal a ton of damage. The ability takes a long time to recharge though, so it needs to be used with caution. However, if the ability is used from a stranger, that ability does not recharge and is a one-time use within that map. Once a tutorial level is beaten, the player gets the ability to interact in a multiplayer setting with players as well, setting up a lobby to be able to tackle particularly difficult levels without having to worry about the team AI being silly. The stages themselves will normally have an elemental affinity, which is a way to generally plan out which units to use, as the enemies will have the elemental affinity of that specific map type. The elemental affinity system creates situations where some units will deal more damage and take less damage, or the opposite, dealing less damage and taking more from the enemies. There's a simple system for weaknesses that the game provides. Fire beats wind, wind beats water, and water beats fire. In each of the instances or missions, you start off as whichever unit was the leader of your party. And you also have access to the other units in your party as well. You can switch to these units at will by clicking on their faces, which are in the top left corner, or by clicking the big portrait, which is in the bottom left. Dragalia Lost also has a raid system, where different levels of difficult bosses can be challenged by up to 4 full groups of units from all over the world. This allows for 16 units to be on the field at a time, 4 of which are controlled by human players. These raids provide their own unique raid rewards for participating, as well as supplying materials for crafting weapons and equipping your characters. The characters, skills, and dragons are all placed in the same summoning pool. Summoning allies and dragons is one of the main gameplay mechanics, and there's a large cutscene filled with fanfare in order to really convey that grandiose nature of the summon. These summons can come through normal gameplay with one of the currencies, Wormite, that's given to the players after completing quests, tasks, and achievements within the game. This Wormite isn't incredibly hard to receive, as finishing a mission grants the player 25 Wormite, and the extra tasks in that mission provide an additional 25, meaning that a player can realistically gain enough of the currency to summon after completing 3 missions. The game also rewards social play, giving 50 Wormite to the player just for interacting with unique players through the multiplayer co-op system, which further incentivizes that cooperative play. The game has a small incentive to hold on to the Wormite, offering a guaranteed higher rarity unit when summoning 10 units all at once. The secondary currency that can be used to summon allies is called Diamantium, that can be purchased either on its own or in bundle packs, which normally offer other items that are useful for leveling up characters, or have guaranteed single pulls. Though the shop is a large part of the game's ecosystem, it's tucked away in a small button, thankfully, being hidden amongst the other elements of the UI. Once summoned from the summoning pool, characters are added to your character selection roster that allows you to build teams. The characters all have unique dialogue and voice acting as well as backstory. Characters and dragons both have their backstories viewed in the player castle, the Halidom, that is unlocked through playing through the game. Mana crowns are small gems that can be unlocked using one of the quest rewards in the game, mana. Mana is one of the ways to unlock hidden traits, special abilities, and other stat modifiers that can make a big difference to the character's overall viability. The other leveling device is to just level up characters the old-fashioned way, experience points, which will also provide stat bonuses and might, an overall sum number that approximates a character's strength. Characters can be equipped with worm cards, a dragon, and a weapon, each of which will increase their HP stat, their strength, and their might. Leveling up a character to their maximum potential will require a ton of stones and experience points, but doing so will give them access to their highest statistics available. Characters with lower rarity will have their lower maximum levels, but those limits can be broken by using Eldwater once they reach their maximum level. Eldwater is obtained by selling worm cards and dragons, or through summoning duplicate heroes. The worm cards have a variety of rarities as well and can be leveled up using specific items to increase their level or by trashing other cards to make them stronger. Each of the cards has a specific trait that's associated with it, with 4-star and 5-star varieties having 2 of those special traits as compared to the others which only have a single one. These cards have different rates of growth for HP and strength, but leveling them up will make a significant difference for players who want to take advantage of that. Weaker worm cards can be unbound, a way of increasing their level cap by using more of the same type of card to unlock its fullest potential. Weapons can be crafted by using materials found within the game, and once created can also be unbound and leveled up by using the same weapon to unbind it, and other weapons or materials to give it experience points. When a weapon is maxed out in level, it can be crafted into another weapon on a skill tree. This will require it to be unbound and at a maximum level, but if done right, a much more powerful weapon can be created with many less limits than its base form. This is costly, however, and requires players to have a smithy and level it up high enough to perform these crafts. The characters, once fully equipped with their materials, can be set as a helper through the Options tab, and when this is done, that specific unit can be called upon by strangers and friends to use that ability. Overall, Dragalia Lost has a unique appeal which stems from its multiplayer aspect as well as its unique dialogue system, which gives depth to each of its characters. The action RPG elements allow for a diverse range of tactics and game feel from normal gameplay, and the game incentivizes choosing teams that will most benefit the player through elemental prowess. The raiding system, which allows 3 other players to join in with their full squads, also contributes to a potentially incredibly fun endgame event. The variance in mechanics within boss fights also provides a sense of growing up, with more complexity as harder difficulties are chosen. The pacing of the game is slightly slow, however. There are constant stops within gameplay to hit loading screens, and despite using a Samsung Galaxy S8, the load screens are frequent enough to be a hindrance to normal play. The game also chooses to leave the downloading for each quest to the player, forcing a download immediately before playing that map. On one hand, this means that the downloads for patches and even the game are smaller, but on the other hand, it means that the loading screens are incredibly frequent because of the downloads that need to happen just to progress the game. If not playing at home or on Wi-Fi, this is definitely something to keep in mind. The narrative is truthfully fun, and I don't regret playing the game and seeing more of it. However, the tutorials continue into the middle portion of Chapter 2, which for me was around 4 hours of play. Admittedly, I could have sped through it if I skipped narrative, which the game so generously provides a button for, but the maps are short, so play sessions are normally not going to be longer than 3 or 4 minutes at a time if you choose to do so, but the narrative, as stated before, will add a substantial amount of time to that. The Gacha system at the moment seems very fair, and I'm totally unsure if characters in the game that aren't 5-star exclusive are bad in any way, shape, or form. As far as I know, this will only make a difference at the highest level of play, as it's only then that the difference in level cap will make them better or worse. If there are units with specific growths or units that have specific strengths, then it's not something that's very readable from the player given UI. Even then, the units that are given to the player for free, they're solid choices, and if taken to 5-star will be able to satisfy the needs of the player for most of the game. The movement of the characters itself in the game also is kind of choppy. which is sort of a shame since movement is so important in an action RPG. The telegraphs that are on the floor at times will hit the player despite the player being out of the hitbox. Though I do admit this may just be me being bad at the game. Small things like that, though, make a big difference in how tight a game feels. The game is still new, and because of its freshness as well as the amount of content at the outset, I definitely think it's worth giving a try. I've been finding myself going back to it to play pretty frequently and enjoying my time with it. I'm hopeful that this game, as time goes on, will be one that I can continue to come back to when I want a fun experience on the go. My final thoughts. The pros, the action RPG combat differentiates the play. The multiplayer aspect is a standout idea. The character diversity and depth is also fantastic. Free-to-play is also at the moment a viable option, and there's tons of content and more on the way. The cons? The load times are long. The game doesn't go into a whole lot of detail about all of its systems, and the maps are kind of repetitive. Enemy types as well are kind of shallow. For my first impressions, I give it a 4 out of 5. Hello everyone, thanks for sticking around until the end of the video. Please drop a like, and if you haven't, subscribe to the channel. If you have any concerns with this video or anything to add as well, just leave a comment. If you know of anyone who you think this may interest, don't hesitate to share it with them. Thank you guys so much, and this is Patrick, signing off.